Now we're live. Yay! All right. Hello, everyone. Uh, we're back doing a nerding out stream because it's my birthday and I turned 29 today.
Oh, by the way, happy birthday.
Thank you. So far I've got Skeptalk with me, and I'm hoping that Poly Dub and Hammer and possibly Pincalo will join us later, but we'll see. And today we're, again, like I said, talking about Star Trek and the ethics that they talk about. And so I'm going to see if Pincalo comes in before I talk about his question that he brought up with me one day. But if he doesn't show up in a little bit, I'll just bring it up anyway.
Okay. I mean, is he there with you, or is he someplace else?
He's in the other place in the house.
Okay, I gotcha.
I instructed Skeptalk to watch a couple of episodes. He's probably seen one of them because he's a next gen. He knows more about next gen than Voyager. But I told him to watch an episode called Nothing Human. Right? That's the one I told. Yeah.
Nothing Human. The other one is called the Ethics.
Ethics. Yeah, that's the one.
I remember that's the one where Worf gets hurt or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one where Worf gets hurt.
He wants to kill himself or some damn
thing. Yeah. So those two episodes are the first one. I think we'll talk about ethics because we really just brought it up, and it's interesting because it talks about two separate ethical issues. It talks about whether it's okay to kill yourself if you become permanently disabled, and whether it's okay to ask your friends to help you do it. And it also talks about whether it's okay for doctors to basically use humanoids as test subjects when their methodology hasn't been proven yet.
Right.
Oops. So I found it very interesting that
we're going to talk about ethics, right?
Yeah.
The one where Worf gets hurt.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I do. What I remember about it was that Worf is like injured. Something falls on him. I think it was
a cargo container.
Yeah, and it breaks. It just ruins his spine.
Yeah,
and he loses the ability to move his legs or something. And the idea is that in Klingon culture, if a warrior is disabled, I mean, any Trekkie knows this. A disabled warrior is, ritually killed by his family. I think is the way that it happens. It basically sort of a ritual seppuku, a la Japanese.
Yeah.
Because it's considered to be undignified for him to linger on and not be able to contribute to the welfare of the tribe. And so it's better to die honorably and be remembered that way. So that's the way, that's the Klingon technique. Of course, this is abhorrent to the, rest of the crew, the human crew.
Yeah.
And they say, well, this is a pretty big waste of a highly trained, Starfleet officer. And it's interesting because you get a little bit, I can't remember how Picard, what he did to resolve the issue, but something like that is going to fall in the lap of the captain of the ship. Just take us digress for just a moment and talk about the absolute authority of a captain on a ship like that.
Yeah.
When you're at sea, and when I went to sea, and our old man had the authority, if he felt that it was in the best interest of the Navy to have somebody taken to the fantail and shot and dumped in the water, he could do that.
Mm-hmm.
That a captain of a Navy ship has that much power, and I think it would be just that way. Also aboard, in Picard's vessel as well.
Yeah.
He's going to have absolute authority to do whatever he has to for the welfare of the ship and the welfare of the fleet in which he serves. So, uh, really, what this is, I think what people think about it, what people think the actual question is how much should cultural norms be respected? If it's somebody's cultural norm that if they get injured sufficiently, they have to be killed. It do we respect that and assist in that? You know, um, didn't Worf have his son on? Wasn't that like a subplot thing where his son was going to have to help him commit suicide? Or
Well, see, because that was the thing, because he asked Riker to do it.
That's right. He asked Riker to do it. That's right.
And Riker did some research and was like, well, technically, Alexander has to do it. Right. And the only reason you're not asking Alexander to do it is because you can't stomach having your child kill you.
Right.
And so he's like, so you're going to have to either do it yourself or find somebody to do it, somebody else, because I'm not going to do it for you.
So did Riker make the right decision?
See, and I found it very interesting that they had him that they wrote in that he said, I would probably ask for the same thing if I were in your position, like truthfully.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like, even knowing the outcome of the episode, I think he did make the right decision.
Well, part of it, wasn't there also a subplot where there was medical help for Worf? I can't remember much about this, but
it was basically a new spine could be made.
Yes, yeah, something to that effect, and would give him partial or most of the ability back, but he'd never be like he was, and so forth.
No, that was that was what Dr. Crusher wanted him to have. They were like assistive devices for his legs.
Oh, okay.
But this other doctor was called in, and she had this like regenerative technology that she was experimenting with.
But there was something wrong with her. Something that
because she
pain on her.
She didn't have the trial completed. Like Starfleet wasn't giving her test subjects because she would have to do it on humanoids, and you can't do that. And so she ended up telling Worf about it anyway against Dr. Crusher's orders. And then Worf was seriously considering that because, well, if you get a new spine and it works, then you're fine.
We're all good. Yeah.
And I found it very interesting that Picard left it up to Riker to make the decision on killing him, whether to help Worf commit it's called the Hekba.
Oh yeah. So Klingon suicide. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. The Hekba. I
thought about that.
He left that up to Riker. But
which on a real naval ship would never
happen. No.
Never happen.
No.
For one thing, the executive officer has a very different position on the ship than the captain. Gonna just digress real quickly here again.
Sure.
On board a U.S. Navy ship and board Navy ships everywhere, the old man is the beloved leader. Okay, he's the dear leader. Okay, he's the guy everybody looks up to. He's got the experience and so forth, and you'll never see him making an unpopular decision in front of the crew. That's the job of the executive officer, or number one, as they call it in the British Navy. And so the executive officer is the badass. When it comes time for dirty stuff that has to get done, the executive officer is going to execute those things. But on big decisions like that, and that would be a command level decision.
Oh, for sure.
You know, that's going to be made by the old man. He's not going to delegate it. Have you ever read the story by Herman Melville called Billy Budd?
No.
I'll give you a quick synopsis of that because I think the ethics that are demonstrated in that bear directly on what we're talking about. This is the British Navy in the 19th century. Okay. Billy Budd is a able-bodied seaman, and he is just brutalized by the first mate, or the second mate, a man named Claggart. And Claggart finally does something dangerous to Billy, and really, potentially could end his life. Hits him so hard, is beating him so badly. Billy stands up and hits Claggart in the face. Claggart stumbles back, slams his head on a bulkhead, and dies. And so, according to the laws of the British Admiralty, Billy Budd has to hang. There is no justified reason for striking a superior officer, no matter what. He can be beating you, he can be raping you, and you cannot strike him. Okay. And so, and just for the offense of striking him, the penalty is death. And that was what Captain Veer, who is the captain of the ship and one of the officers, the story is their dialogue after all this has happened through the night, as they argue back and forth about what they can do because they both want to find a way to spare Billy Budd's life, but they know in the morning, come dawn, if they don't have a reason to keep him alive, they're going to have to hang him. And spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you how the story ends. Captain Veer decides that there is no way to make an exception, and that the law must be honored, even though it breaks his heart, because he really likes Billy Budd. Everybody likes Billy Budd. He's the favorite guy on the ship. And so, Billy Budd's last words as the noose is being put around his neck is, "God bless Captain Veer," and the book ends. So it's one of those stories that it's haunted me through the years, because I understand the difficulty that a captain can be put in, the difficult circumstance in which a captain can be put to have to make that decision one way or the other. Gonna break just here for a minute. I did not get a notification.
There's somebody watching. Poppy, Prospero.
Okay, I didn't get a link. I guess I'll just cruise over to your channel right quicko. Line press. And
Kara, thank you, Kara, for the happy birthday.
There it is, right there. And let's see. All right, you know what? I'm going to have to step across the room. So talk amongst yourself. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Hang on one second.
All right. So while Skeptalk is across the room, so yeah, just thanks guys for being here for my birthday stream. That's really awesome. Ooh, a guitar. I hear a guitar.
All right, back. Sorry about that.
I heard music.
All right, we got to get this right. We're going to take a break from our discussion for a minute and happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Blind Press. Happy birthday to you.
Why? Thank you very much, Skep. That was awesome.
A proper birthday serenade. I had thought about doing that, and I thought I would have to get up and play it on the guitar or the banjo or ukulele, and the ukulele was at hand, so that's what you got. So Hawaiian, happy birthday! Seriously, happy birthday! I'm so glad. I know you're such a cool person, and many happy returns. I hope it's a very special day.
Well, thank you. I've had a good day.
Good. Anyway, getting back to the ethical dilemma and who solves it. That's normally going to fall in the lap of a captain and something that's clearly a life and death thing. It certainly would not go to the executive officer who's making sure that there's enough gas, there's enough fuel in the reactor tanks, and that there's enough food on board, and that everybody's getting the proper reports in on time, and the ship is accomplishing its mission administratively. The operational guy is the captain, and he is going to make any big decision like that. So that was something where they kind of went Hollywood on it.
Do you think that might have been why when Dr. Crusher took or relieved the visiting doctor of duty, that Picard stepped in and told her basically, you have to let her perform this highly experimental and possibly lethal surgery because Worf's a Klingon and he needs to either be functioning or dead. And if this is an option, you need to let her perform the surgery. And Beverly's like, oh, what?
Yeah. Didn't Dr. Crusher, there was some conflict with Dr. Crusher in that. I just don't remember the episode well enough.
What happened was she tried to save a patient with an experimental drug she'd been working on. They were doing a rescue, like an emergency rescue.
Yeah.
And she was pressed into service, and she used an experimental medication on somebody, and it didn't work out too well.
Okay. So she was burned. She
was burned, and then the surgery was, obviously successful. Spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't seen the episode, but the very next one, Worf's walking around, so but afterwards, Dr. Crusher's like, it doesn't matter that it was successful, because the point is that you're working, because I think she said it was like a 30% chance or a success rate that she had in her theoretical trials. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's like, you gambled and you won, but your price was a life. And that's not what you're supposed to do as a doctor, was Dr. Crusher's point.
Okay. So that almost harkens back to the other episode.
It does. That's why I told you to watch, or to think about them both, because they're both very similar. And that's probably a good segue.
Yeah, the ethics was a very interesting thing. Essentially, one of the crewmen on the Enterprise gets an alien life form that attaches itself to her. Excuse me, and they have to figure out how to get the alien life form off, and in order to do that, they call up a hologram program of a doctor who is a specialist in exobiology and working with new and strange life forms throughout the galaxy, and he happens to be a Kardashian guy with a very, shall we say, relaxed attitude toward experimentation with his patients. And so he's got kind of a Dr. Mengele past.
Yes.
And the Bajorans and the Klingons just hate the shit out of this guy. It's just no two ways to put it. They just hate him, so much it's almost sacramental. And and he's all wants to be buddy buddy with the doctor. And what I found interesting about that episode was, and spoiler alert, here it comes, because this is basically got to go to the ending to understand the principle here. They end up using the guy's knowledge and technique in order to uh, uh, get the alien life form off of her. And then the doctor says, now I have to make a moral decision about whether I want to keep you or not. And, uh, the Kardashian hologram is saying, well, I think this is the beginning of a great friendship, and all that sort of thing. And the doctor says, delete program at the end. And he blows the hologram away, so he's kind of doing virtue signaling, in my opinion, because he's already committed the sin by using the fruit of the poison tree, right?
Yeah.
So, he's used the technology that was obtained through the experimentation on, hundreds, the way they put it, of people on
Bajor during the occupation.
on Bajor, of hundreds of Bajorian people, including some of the relatives of one of the crewmen. It takes it really personally, and as well he should. And it's almost analogous to Judaism, and talking with a child of Holocaust victims or Holocaust survivors. Mm-hmm. That's the way they would feel about that, about using some technology that was gained by the Nazis through experimentation on the Jews during World War II. And there was a lot of stuff, believe it or not, that was obtained that way, and it's still used in medicine today. So we don't think anything about that. We regret that it's happened. It's a terrible thing, but it's looked at as, hey, it's a silver lining of a very dark cloud. It was an evil thing that happened, never should have happened, but just in the sense of, so that their sacrifice would not be completely in vain. We can remember them by using what we learned about from these awful experiments that we would never do, on our own. We'd be morally deterred from ever using them. So it really got my mind to spinning. Obviously, I'm sitting here talking to Blue Street. Sorry, but I don't know. What did you think? What do you think the questions were? And do you think it laid them out honestly? Because I thought it was a little bit dishonest at the end for the doctor to get rid of the guy.
It was, I thought so too. Like the way he did it. I think they could have, if they didn't want to have him around, they could have said something like, Doc decided to keep him, but then all of a sudden the hollow buffer couldn't handle 2 complex programs like that, or something like that.
Yeah, you
could write in a way that allows you to continue using the same ideas that you had, which is, we're going to use this technology to save our chief engineer because we need her, and we have it right now, and it's better to use the knowledge than to lay waste to those innocent lives.
Yes.
And I think it chose to play to the doctors, because Doc is very vain, and he's a very virtue signal-y kind of guy. There's actually another episode. It's very interesting about ethics as well. It's called Retrospect, where 7 of 9 thinks that a weapons dealer that they're doing trade with has stolen some of her nanoprobes.
Mm.
She's having like flashbacks, and Doc leads her in some like memory regression. You know what I mean, right? Those hypnotic or whatever, hypnotic regression. Those things that were famous for planting memories or screwing up other ones that, like, so she ends up accusing this guy, and they end up taking it to the authorities of the space station that they're at. And this poor guy's like, well, now my career's fucked, right?
Yeah.
Because you've accused me of doing this horrible thing. And so he ends up taking his ship and flying, and spoiler alert, like his ship blows up. And the problem is that she's remembering an assimilation event. She's not like from when she was a Borg. She wasn't remembering him taking nanoprobes from her. She was remembering Borg taking nanoprobes from her and assimilating somebody from when she was a Borg. So because of Doc's, like, I think he called it hypnagogic regression. And because of that, they caused the guy to go AWOL and die. And it's a very interesting take on what can happen when you accuse people of things they didn't do.
Right.
And she actually at the end, she ends up saying, I feel guilt, like this is because this is like very shortly after she becomes free from the collective. So she's like, I'm feeling guilt and shame because I've caused the death of this person. But Janeway is like, no, we kind of all did. We were behind you because we're your family and we're always going to be behind you. But we all jumped the gun and we caused this poor man to have an accident and die. And that's the very worst. At the very least, his career would have like his trading days were done. At least at that station.
Yeah.
So it's a very that's a very at least honest look at what can happen if it's wrongfully accused. But I do think that with the deletion of the Kardashian doctor, that was very, like I said, they should have written in something about how, Doc decided we're going to keep him for absolute emergencies.
Right.
And then, all of a sudden, oh shit, the holopuffers can't handle Doc and the new program. We have to choose to keep one or the other. And obviously we're going to keep Doc because he's Doc. He's
family.
Yeah.
I always thought that they, just as a kind of another digression, just real quick though, I always thought the thing with Doc, they never explored his humanness enough. And I always thought that they could have done so much more with that.
Yeah, they did. They had a few episodes, but really not very many.
Yes, and
not as many as Data had.
Exactly, and they did such a great job with Data.
Yeah,
Data's probably, he's my favorite character.
Oh yeah.
Next Generation.
And there's so many good episodes to do with like ethics around him too, like Measure of a Man.
Yes, or yes, and also his uh, when he created
When he created his daughter.
his daughter.
Yeah.
Yes, and that
Yeah.
was and then ends up having to do her in.
Yeah. But Picard was ready to be like, no, he like standing up to the admiral, like, no, you're not. I'm not forcing my officer to give his child to the state.
Right.
You cannot. He's like, I was there to define his rights as sentient life. You can't make me or him give his child away.
Right.
And that's why Picard is my favorite captain, because he will, like, Kirk's had plenty of his, F you, I'm going to get my officers. But it's always been like behind their backs. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
He's
yeah.
always like, yes, sir, I'm going to not do this thing. And then he.
Well, Kirk is an unsophisticated alpha male.
Yeah.
He's like that obnoxious jock who was in your history class.
Yeah.
Who had better than average intelligence and was very spirited and a loudmouth. And they grow up into people like Kirk. And Picard, on the other hand, is a trillion times more complicated than Kirk. Kirk is cognitively simple. He's cognitive simplicity on two legs.
Yeah.
And Picard is just the opposite. Picard has lots of interests and capabilities. He's a very disciplined man, a very, tremendous breadth of understanding about things. Whereas Kirk is just like, keep your eye on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I do. I don't think about anything else. You always get the feeling that Kirk was like a Gary Kasparov of the chess world, who that's all Kasparov has ever done or ever wants to do is be the chess player, whereas uh, Picard was more like Boris Spassky, who is an instrument rated jet pilot and a concert pianist, a concert violinist, and a tremendous hunter and outdoorsman, and is also an opera singer, and he also does a bit of chess.
Yeah.
He's the world champion of chess.
Yeah.
By the way. And so that was yeah, always, and it's easier to like Picard. If I usually like to give the answer Kirk is my favorite captain, just because it stimulates debate. It gets things going. It doesn't. Nobody really cares who my favorite captain is. Nobody cares about that. But what's fun is to see people talk about that. But if I was really pressed, if God was here and said, no, tell me the truth. Who's your favorite captain? But by far and away, it has to be Picard. He's by far the more interesting of the two men.
Oh yeah.
Who would you like to have dinner with more?
Oh, for sure, Picard.
Yeah, jeez. So that's that's just kind of an aesthetic thing. I guess we're kind of far off the topic of ethics, but getting back to what I was saying earlier about being the captain of a ship, you are where the buck stops, and the ocean is very much like outer space. You can communicate by radio, okay, or satellite or whatever, and but you cannot do real life anywhere else.
Mm.
And so, if a decision has to be made, it has to be made there. Theoretically, you could radio in, and somebody could make that decision for you. But that's not the way the Navy is set up, and that I'm sure that's not the way Starfleet is set up. I think the captain would have a tremendous amount of discretion about ruling on things, even matters of life and death.
Yeah.
So Were you disappointed when Doc got rid of the hologram in ethics?
Yeah, I kind of was. I wasn't disappointed that the hologram was gone because I don't think it would have made a good addition to the
Oh no, really,
show.
really unlovable, unlovable, almost like a Ferengi.
Um, but I think the way that they had him go was backwards to how the whole episode went.
Yeah,
Like, and I mean, yeah, you did see Janeway, because Janeway has to be much more decisive with that, because she's 70,000 light years away from freaking Earth.
yeah,
She can't radio in this Starfleet and go,
right.
what should I do?
Well, yeah, exactly.
um, so she was like, she had to be like, okay, yeah, Doc, you're going to use the program, but then afterwards you can decide.
Yeah, decide what to do. But that decision would have been made by the ship's master, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Prospero had a very interesting insight. I just want to read it. The character of Kirk was kind of born of the astronaut age. Think of the Mercury 7.
Yeah.
The right stuff and all that sort of thing.
The
And
hero, the American hero.
Picard is the Enlightenment captain. I'm glad that she said Enlightenment, because if she'd said millennial, I would have taken issue with it. But
yeah,
he's the millennial captain. No.
No, that's Cisco. No.
I'm triggered. Yeah, right. Exactly.
No, Cisco's growing on me.
You liking Cisco better as you?
He's still never going to be my favorite.
Yeah.
But he grows on you.
Yeah. It's kind of he's fine.
There's and there's an interesting, like, because we're getting close to 11, and I know we have minions at 11:30, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna address Pincalo's question because he's not coming, I guess. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He was like, he calls me one day and he goes, "Hey, what do you think stops people from just cloning themselves with a transporter?"
Right.
He's like, "What's to stop them from doing that? How come nobody does that?" And I'm like, "Well, they don't have a reason to." And he's like, "But why?" Like, nowadays, that would be the first thing we would want to do: clone ourselves and be like, "Hey, can you head over here and take care of this?" Or like,
Well, yeah. If you had think of all the times that Beverly Crusher has had to do heartbreaking triage because there's only one of her.
yeah,
So if you had 3 Beverly Crushers, you could always take care of all the emergencies.
exactly.
So I think that's actually a very good question. It's you can't, you kind of can't back your way into demanding fully logical behavior out of something that is a fantasy.
Hmm.
You there's a certain amount of you suspend disbelief,
Yeah,
and you suspend some other things. You suspend your logic a little bit to a certain extent, and that's what the program asks of you. And
yes,
if it's too big an ask, then you find you don't like it because it feels phony.
yeah,
But if it's commensurate and appropriate for the story, and commensurate with the needs of the story, uh, the viewers will normally grant that request
hmm,
of the artists who write these things, and be able to enjoy the story. I read a lot of science fiction and fantasy. Always have since I was a kid.
yeah,
And uh, the difference between good and bad science fiction and fantasy to me is all about whether or not they make the unbelievable believable,
yes,
and the illogical logical,
yes,
or where you can imagine it. If you can bring your imagination gracefully into the picture they paint, that's a success.
Yes. For instance, teleporting dragons that teleport between. Totally believable when you're reading it. I love Anne McCaffrey.
I was just going to say that's Anne McCaffrey, right? And the dragons go between the worlds and the islands or whatever.
Between places, yeah.
Those things are, yeah.
And they can go between time.
That's very imaginative, in my opinion. Very, very imaginative of her to think that up. Well, anyway, any questions from chat? We have 1 minute left.
Yeah, if there's any quick questions anyone has.
Nobody's saying anything. I think you and I might actually be alone.
Well, I think we'll cut it here because I'm gonna go and get a snack before Minions.
Yeah, I'm gonna go open some Gatorade or something, get myself prepared, get myself comfortable for a couple hours.
What is the meaning of life? 42, Prospero. 42. That's the meaning of life.
That's the meaning of life. You got it. Well, thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Coming.
Let's do this again.
Absolutely.
If you can stand it, if you don't mind listening to me droning on and on.
No, it's fun. It's absolutely fun.
I'm sorry that Hammer and Polly and some of the other people didn't come on, but maybe
it's all next time. Good. We'll figure it out next time.
Yeah, let's do that.
For sure.
Thanks a million. I guess you can close us out here.
And we'll see you in like half an hour.
See you in half an hour. Good night, everybody.
Come to Minions of the Zoo, everyone.